Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Skin Wellness Pro Show, the official podcast of the Nutritional Aesthetics Alliance. I am Rachael Pontillo, president and co-founder of the Nutritional Aesthetics Alliance, and I am happy to be here with you today, and I'm happy to introduce my co-host, our education specialist, Tara Swagger. Thanks for
Hello.
being here, Tara.
Great. Thanks for having me.
So we thought that a fun topic today would be some things that we do in our daily lives to make sure that we're staying on top of our game so that we're showing up for ourselves, for our clients, for our families in the best way possible. Because, health is something that for a lot of people means different things. And I was just thinking that when I began this journey for myself, kind of getting healthy, what does that look like? It looked a lot different back then than it looks now because my lifestyle was very different back then. But I was just trying to think of what are some things that are working for me now, as busy as I am, to make sure that I am able to have enough energy and enough creativity and enough just bandwidth to be able to really be present in all the areas of my life. And I also was just thinking how so many people get overwhelmed by the list of shoulds, right? We should do this to be healthy. This is what we should do to be healthy. This is what we should eat. And I don't know about you, Tara, but like I never did really well with the shoulds. And I just found sometimes that when I heard that I should do stuff, it made me almost not want to do the stuff. So I'm just trying to think of like what in my life today remains from when I kind of overhauled my lifestyle, and it remained because it's easy. So I thought that would be fun for both of us to share so that we can let everyone who's listening in to what we here at the Nutritional Aesthetics Alliance realistically do
Yeah.
to stay on top of our games. So Tara, I thought it would be great to kind of break this into a couple different categories today, and maybe on a different episode we can talk about the topical stuff. But today I thought that focusing on food, like healthy eating and movement, exercise, and then some of the mindset things that we do might be a fun way to kind of start this kind of health hacks discussion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think what I probably would also start in this discussion too is also, while it's always easy to see what we should do or what people are suggesting based on their life, like we're going to do today, based on what we've kind of experienced as business owners, entrepreneurs, as teachers, as parents. And there's also part of this is also a list of what to remove. And so some of that I think is from the people that are, our audience that's listening, is it's both, right? So you need to consider, we're going to share stuff with you about what we find works and probably stuff you've already heard, but sometimes it's really good to like hear it outside of the magazine and actually from real people who are working in the industry. But also things that maybe you should consider eliminating, because I think when you add up all the shoulds and you add it to what you might already have, part of that might be looking at what should I consider extracting out of my life, sort of the minimalist type of thing. Because while I can tell you I do a lot of things, and we'll probably, as we talk through some of them today, it probably will only be a fraction of them. And that doesn't mean you have to do a lot of things. It just means that's what I saturated myself in. But also, again, just part of the discussion we should weave in also is things that should be considered taken out, because that might look different for everybody. But sometimes we don't realize that we continue to have things in our life that is no longer serving us, so it's taking up space. And the feng shui of your self, your personal self, your business, your future, a lot of that has to do with removing items to make space for new ones. So
That's a
just
really good point.
yeah, so just as a beginning with everybody, as we start to share with you, none of this is to be judgmental or be like, hey, look at all these things we do. I'm certain that all of you already do a bunch of things on your own too, but this could be a great way to just be reflective back to yourself and say, okay, well, what's serving me, and what did I just hear that might serve me if I remove something that's not, and then maybe potentially give me some benefit, because we're here to empower everybody um, to get better in their lifestyle, in their health and their nutrition. So
Yeah. And I'm also going to be really honest that what I do today, if my 10-year ago self were to look at my habits today, I'd probably be like, oh my God, that is not healthy. That is not what we're doing, So things have changed in my life since I first started this journey, both of, a skin healthy lifestyle, as well as the journey of being a business owner. And obviously, when you do something for a long period of time and you age, your body changes. Sometimes things happen in your health that cause things to shift in unexpected ways. But also, if you have a family, your kids grow older, their lifestyles change, and that affects what you then have to prioritize in your life. So
right.
I'm just going to be very, very transparent that it is not perfect.
Well, I mean, there's layers to that too, right? Like, so you get older and you create wisdom around what you need as your own self, right? So that shifts no matter what.
Yeah.
And also I think as you learn new things and you try new things, or you implement something new, or you're attracted to something, this is why these journeys aren't, they're not really about what everyone should do, but about the discussion, about the self-reflection, so that we are going to change every minute. Every year is different. Every year at the beginning of the year, I'm always like, this is going to be my year. And you can't even sit and look and say, I imagine what it's going to look like, because the truth is things change and
Yeah.
happen in
You
ways
can't
you don't
predict the
imagine.
future.
And that as if you're older, if there's some young entrepreneurs, estheticians, or people in the nutrition field listening to this podcast, understand that that's going to happen all the time, right? And so as you get older and you recognize that, yes, everything changes constantly. It's this
Whether you
organic,
have kids or not,
yeah,
things
it's
in your
this
life
organic flux
change.
of life, right?
Right.
So I think it's great to always remind yourself of that too. Like it's not this is how it is and then it stays like that.
Yeah.
And I think as someone who's older now, I think I'm more malleable in what I can relax around, as opposed to being so rigid on my health ideology that I make choices and I level out, and I'm not as attached to certain things like I might have in the past. And
Yeah.
I think that just comes with like the wisdom of knowing that it's okay. Like we're all just humans. We're all trying to have a human experience. And so while we'll share a bunch of stuff and hopefully there's things in here that can serve our audience, and I hope that there is, and then of course, let us know too, like what in your life is serving you that maybe you think is a great thing to share for our audience as well, because there's just so many options of things that people can do to empower their lives.
Absolutely. We would love to hear from you. So if you're listening to this or you're watching this, we would love to hear in the comments, what are your health hacks? What do you do to make sure that you are having your needs met so that you can show up in your life? So we have our YouTube channel. We would love to see comments on the YouTube channel or on our blog at skinwellnesspro.com, where we have the video, the audio, and the transcript of all of our episodes. You can interact with us there. We would love to hear from our community what is helpful for you. So with that said, why don't we start with food, which
Okay.
I know food is such a topic that for some people is like their favorite thing. And for other people, it's really, really hard. And there might be some triggers, and there might be some issues. There might be some attachments or memories associated with food. So I'll kind of just start by giving a very brief overview of just my overall journey with food, and then kind of end that with where I'm at now and what's working for me. So I was really lucky to grow up in a household that, even though I grew up in a single parent household, single working mom, she always cooked everything from scratch. We had a big garden. We grew a lot of vegetables, and every meal was home cooked, no matter how busy she was. And yes, we had a lot of help. We had family members who helped us out and made sure that happened. We sat at the table together and ate our meals together. And I felt that that was a really solid foundation for me. And then when I went away to college, I kind of fell into that pattern that a lot of college students fall into, where you're eating dining hall food, which is not the healthiest. And then maybe you're getting 3 a.m. pizza, and you're eating more junk food and snack food. And then that kind of continued. And I kind of fell away from the structure that I was raised with, but it didn't leave me completely, because when I was older and had my children, those are things that I knew that I wanted to make sure that I provided as well. Home cooked meals as much as possible, sitting at the table as much as possible. And I'll tell you, things started out that way when my kids were really young. But then when they got really busy and we started getting home at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, sitting at the table together and having home cooked meals every day didn't always happen and doesn't always happen. And many of you who are familiar with my story, if you've been in my community for a while, you might know that I experienced a significant weight gain after my second pregnancy. And I also had acne for pretty much my entire life, from the age of 10 to 32. So around the same time as I was trying to find different ways to clear up my acne holistically, I also was kind of trying to figure out, how the heck do I lose this weight? Because I had tried everything and nothing was working, and I had no idea why. I had developed a subclinical hypothyroid condition. I was pre-diabetic. I had high cholesterol. And that was just, years of eating convenience foods, just because I fell into that pattern, even though I knew better. So when I first dove into this kind of holistic nutrition, health coaching world, learning about things like food combining and eating a lot of plants and making sure that the quality of the animal foods that I was eating was the best that I could have access to, grass-fed, pasture-based, organic, all that good stuff. I was very dogmatic about how I was eating. I was gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free. I was doing meal prep like no one's business. I was soaking my grains. I was soaking my nuts. I was making my own sourdough bread from organic sprouted flour. Like, I was into it. I had so many things fermenting in my kitchen. It was like a science lab. And that worked really well for me for a while, but I started to not feel well. I started having a lot of cravings. I started having weight gain. I started getting exhausted. And I didn't realize what was going on at the time. I thought that I was just getting burnt out because my practice was getting busier. I was doing more teaching online. I was, I had started the second business. Things were progressing as my kids were also getting busier too. And my kids were also starting to get a bit pickier. They weren't wanting to eat the quinoa anymore. They weren't wanting to be as adventurous with certain flavors as I was. So it came to the point where I'm just like, I was so exhausted, and my husband works crazy schedule, and I didn't have any help at the time from any family members. So I just started giving in to things that the kids would want, things that they found out about at school that they would then ask for. And what was really going on with me is I actually had chronic Lyme disease at the time, which I didn't know for 3 more years. But I started gaining weight back. I started feeling terrible, and it just, things kind of fell apart. Granted, falling apart, like I was still, according to my doctor, I was still eating healthier than probably 95% of the American population, but I felt like such a failure because I had gotten myself into such a rigid food structure, and I felt like superwoman until I didn't, right? So I had to figure out what my body needed at that point to recover from the chronic Lyme and get over the symptoms with that. And I also had to figure out, okay, how am I going to keep my kids healthy? So that's when it started, like, I have to just do the bare minimum. So what does that look like? So that's when things like the crock pot started coming in handy, and things like making sure that I had pasta sauce already made, or a pot of soup already made and frozen in portions. And I always had a couple of different salad dressings pre-made that I had ready to go. And these were things that were really quick that I could whip up, or that one of my daughters could whip up, or my husband could whip up, and that we could just kind of assemble at the end of a long day instead of having to just make everything from scratch every day. But confession time, we started eating out more, and that got expensive. And I also noticed that I started gaining even more weight, because even when you're eating out at healthy places, like getting prepared food from Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or something like that, that's still, you're not getting the healthiest oils. You're getting usually refined seed oils like canola oil or something like that, which is inflammatory. You're getting more sodium, you're getting more sugar, you're getting some ingredients that you probably wouldn't be using if you were cooking from scratch. But at least it was like recognizable food. It wasn't like any mystery sauces or fast food. So I felt like that was my compromise. I was doing the best I can with that. And then, we would do things like make our own pizza in the oven instead of ordering it out, because that's still quick and easy. And then things like using the oven for things like roasting vegetables and chicken on one baking sheet so that it's all done at the same time, so that you literally just like plop it all on there, season it, stick it in the oven at 375, and 25 minutes later, you've got your vegetables and your chicken all done. And stuff like that was really the way that I kept us afloat with eating as much real food as possible, even though we were still kind of supplementing with prepared foods. And I also just had to learn to give myself grace, that you know what, this is what I had to do for that time while I was feeling so terrible and didn't really have enough support. And then thankfully, for the last, I would say 18 months or so, I've been feeling really good. And I've been able to incorporate more of the home cooked meals again that I used to do. But now my kids are 18 and a half and just turned 16. Guess what? They don't like the quinoa. They don't like the lentils. They don't want to eat some of the foods that we used to eat. I just had a conversation with my daughter the other day that she has decided that she doesn't like brown rice stir fries anymore because it like gives her the ick. So, you know, we still compromise with certain prepared foods. And I also have a kid who decided that she doesn't like the crock pot anymore because she claims everything tastes the same and is the same texture. So I'm still doing things like having the sauces pre-made, making sure I always have a soup ready to go. But there are times that, you know what, let's just grab something from Whole Foods and heat it up and have it at that and have it that. And that's what it's been looking like. What about you,
Yeah.
Tara?
Well, I mean, a lot of your story sounds very familiar
Mm,
right from the beginning with growing up. We never ate out. We always had fresh meals on the table. We grew a very, very large garden and always had vegetables, and we canned and we froze. And I still love that. I still grow my own garden. I still can my own stuff. Part of that for me though is I enjoy it. So there's a therapeutic value there. I think if you're not someone who has a green thumb or you're interested in gardening, then don't do that, right? Like, so there's a hack right there. Don't try to do something if it doesn't call you because you think that that's the best thing for you to do because you hear all these people saying, well, you should grow your own, you should grow your own.
right,
It's a lot of wasted time and energy and money if it's not something you're interested in and you're just sort of forcing yourself to do it because you believe or you've been sort of muscled into believing that that's what you have to do to have healthy stuff. So while I do that, I certainly understand and know that most people are not interested in canning the way that I am. So for me, that's just an enjoyable thing. And also I would say as a hack with that too, is that even for someone like me who loves to do that, if you don't have time and it's not going to work out, it's okay. Like, so give yourself, like you said, the grace to say, okay, well, I will buy my chicken broth because I don't have any canned broth left and I don't have time to make some.
right.
Um, I love doing my own broth. I think either canning your own chicken broth, or bone broth, or buying good, healthy, organic, grass-fed bone broth is definitely one of my favorite food hacks because if you have that on hand, you can always use it to make your soups and you're really boosting your nutritional value. So,
Mhm,
that's one of my favorite little food things. I also had Lyme disease, so I struggled for a good portion of time with my kids were really young. And same thing, you filtering in things that are going to make your life easy is also part of that balance, that wellness balance that you need to look for. I mean, I would say, you know, create a way for you to find and seek out the things that are acceptable to you in the market that you're willing to say this is an option for my family if I can't make the meal, right? Instead of just running through the store and maybe grabbing something because you're kind of desperate, take some time somewhere to really study what you have at your local stores or your local vendors that you can buy that you are like, you know what, this isn't perfect, but this is a good option. And then that way, when the times are happening where you can't really get into the kitchen to buy to make stuff, you have some go-tos and that makes it easier. And so I think that's a really normal thing for most families. We're much busier. We're most of us women are not just working, we're entrepreneurs, we're doing other things, and we're also probably for a lot of people the main cooks in the house too.
mhm,
And so take the time to relieve yourself if you can and find the right options. If you don't have a Whole Foods, maybe there is something that's prepared at your local store. I know I'm a big Costco shopper. I
mhm.
love Costco, and I'm really anal about ingredients because that's just how I am. But I have things that we buy at Costco where I think the ingredients are clean enough for me and my family, and we have them in the freezer, things that are a little bit more prepared. And I think those are good things. So, I think in health and nutrition, you get, like you said, very dogmatic, like it's got to be this way. And
Mhm.
I definitely think that to empower you, so both of us, when our children were younger, there was not accessibility to prepared foods in the market the way that it is today.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
I know, it's so
it's
much better
incre
today than it
it's
was
incredible.
10
Yeah,
years ago.
so I think for most people, if you don't realize that yet, but you might be surprised if you start to look around because I remember when we were younger, when my son, he's 11 now, but when he was young, he had definitely had issues with dairy, and there was no such thing as anything dairy free, right? And so I made my own. Everything was like same thing, you know, I might have been soaking something or sprouting something or trying to make my own like little bit of ice cream that was dairy free or whatever. And now there's so many options. So, you know, release yourself from feeling like you have to do those things, because I don't think that you're sacrificing the amount of energy that you might be sacrificing might not be worth what you're getting. So, you know, evaluate that for yourself, because I think a great health hack is to sort of look at your food choices and know where you're willing to make those exceptions. That's going to look different for everybody. You know, my family's very animal based. I do love vegetables and we have them, but we try to focus a little more seasonally, which means that in the winter time, there's less of that. For me, what was really awesome is when I started understanding some of the detriment of vegetables, which I didn't know for years because I was a vegetarian and that was all I was focused on. And I learned that, you know, a lot of high intakes of vegetables can also come with its own problems and issues. It helped me let go of like my youngest son, who he just hates vegetables. He loves good healthy meat, and it was allowed me to let go of that. Like, hey, I don't want to fight with you. You're eating a great diet. You're getting plenty of great protein, and you know, he has a few little things here and there for veggies, but I was able to release my focus over that. And so that might not be what's right for someone else's family who maybe doesn't want to be animal based or whatever, but for us, I sort of let that go. And so I think, you know, look around and see where you can make exceptions or which ones you're willing to do. So that way, when the time happens and you're in a pinch, you're not beating yourself up about it. You know what I mean? Um, I think in terms of food, you know, always kind of figure out what your staple items are that your family does like to eat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for a while I was like really trying to keep everyone hyper engaged in these like beautiful different dishes and stuff like that. And my food prep was like 6 hours long, right?
Oh my
Well,
God.
nobody wants that. I didn't, you know, I enjoy cooking, so I was enjoying it for a short period of time, but then I was realizing like my family was like sometimes they were hit or miss. Sometimes my kids would be like, I'm not eating that. Now I just made a bunch of stuff and nobody wants to eat it. And
And that's
so
like the worst feeling too.
right. Well, and then it's
Like,
wasteful.
what do
So
you
like,
mean you don't want it?
yeah, and then it's wasteful. So I think
Right.
that, you know, for us, I know the way that I work my food for the week is I do very basic stuff, you know. I do chicken tenderloins is pretty like often a good one. Especially right now I utilize my grill. I go out, I cook all the things on the grill. I do my chicken tenderloins, I'll do a few burger patties, and I might do something else. I might do some shrimp or some salmon. And then I just sort of package it up individually. And like you said, things you can just kind of assemble. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I'm not home, the kids can pull out a burger patty or two and they can put on the toppings they want.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my husband wants to put it on a salad, so he'll do that. Sometimes the chicken tenders go on a salad, or they go, you know, the kids add something to it, or they put it in a wrap. And so, quite honestly, my food prep now is like less than an hour for the whole week. There's four of us, and I always have sort of just basic stuff in there every week. I have some cucumbers, I have some peppers, and I have so things that people can make on their own. And my kids have learned how to get really creative. Like, we have healthy food in the fridge. So what am I going to put together? And they can be creative on their own. And that's exciting too, because it keeps them eating the good stuff. But I think that if you overthink your food prep, I think if you know, you spend all that time, I think it's very exhausting if you're a busy mother or a busy person in general, whoever is doing the cooking. And I think just doing simple stuff means that you can stay committed to it every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm going to cook like two or three proteins for the week, and there it is. Hard-boiled eggs is another one we do on occasion too, because they're easy to grab and go. They can be added to a salad. They can be made into egg salad. They can do different things. So I always tell my clients when we're working through their health and wellness and lifestyle is just keep it simple. What do you like out of these food groups? Cook a couple things every week, make it be less than an hour's worth of work, and that's it. And then in the in between, if you've kind of found some of those foods that you can are okay with from Costco, the grocery store, or your local restaurants for takeout, then have those in your head. Oh, tomorrow night I don't have any things left over, so I'm going to pick up that from that place, but keeping it simple, I think, is the best thing you can do. Overthinking it, I think, is where everybody gets super lost. I see these plans for people, and there's all these recipes to make, and I'm like, don't make any recipes, just cook basic food groups and then create something. And then once in a while, when you have the time and you're really excited about making that soup or whatever, and like you said, make the soup and package it up to freeze. I do the same thing. If I'm going to make chili, it's going to be the huge pot.
Yes.
And I'm doing it one time and it's all going in the freezer. And that is great. So, do that once in a while, but don't make it the mainstay every single week. Keep your food prep really simple. Especially since I think in general, staying away from food preservatives is so important for your health. And like you said, the oils can be detrimental, but if you're experiencing some of those things occasionally, I think you can handle it.
Sure.
Your biology is going to be aligned enough to be like, all right, well, here it is. But we don't want those as our everyday parts and particles. So you kind of have to work a little bit to make sure that you have some fresh food available to you. But I really think that keeping it simple is the key to that.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to add to the food piece before we move on to talk about movement is that it's really important to involve whoever else lives with you, whether that's kids or a spouse or a partner or roommates or parents, grandparents, like if you have extended family living with you, because I really don't think it should be one person's responsibility to cook for an entire household. Like, obviously, if you live alone, then yeah, that's kind of on you. But I would say, if you do have children or someone else in the house and they claim they don't like to cook, they can be responsible for one meal. Like, they can learn one thing to cook and make it the way they do like it, and that can be their thing. And that's something that I started insisting on, because one thing that I refused to do, and this is something that I am actually pretty firm with our CNAP students whenever they're, asking how do I help my clients cook healthy for their family? Nobody should have to be a short order cook in their own house. My rule is I cook one meal. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, then you either don't eat, you're not going to die, it's one meal, or you can make your own meal, cook your own, period. And that has always been a hard, fast rule for me, because first of all, I don't think it's great to teach the kids that they can have whatever they want, whenever they want, from whoever they want. And there are times in life where we're not always going to have the exact thing that we want, and we have to make a decision, either find a way to enjoy it. Maybe we use a different condiment or different seasoning, or maybe we do have to think on the fly and, oh, okay, I don't want mom's stir fry tonight. I'll make myself a salad. I'll heat up that soup from the freezer or something like that. But now that I shouldn't even say now that my kids are older, because my younger daughter started cooking regularly when she was 9 or 10 years old, because she just loved it. She used to watch Food Network for fun instead of, cartoons or whatever. That's what she would have on. And she just got really interested in food and in layering flavors together. And my husband is a chef, and he says that, she cooks better than the majority of the cooks that he works with. And it's just something that she is passionate about. I am not passionate about cooking, and I will be very honest about that. So, if you do have someone in your household who loves to cook, let them cook.
Well, yeah, I guess that's what I mean. Like,
get that going.
Don't overbear yourself if it's not your jam, because something else might be your jam, right?
Absolutely.
Or for me, and same thing for me in my life. Like, there's things that my husband does in my household that just it's not my jam. He's the guy that does a little bit more of the cleaning around here, because he's into it, and I am like, oh, I don't want to do the cleaning. So I think that's another, like, that's just by itself its own hack, like letting everybody kind of participate and pitch in where they
Let
have
them
this
own their own thing that
with
they
it.
like
And
to do.
yeah, because I think that's like how you delegate in a business too. You know, you want to give your employees the ability to do the work that suits them the best, you know. So
Yep.
same thing
And to
in your
take
health.
ownership of that work and to have pride in that work.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Shall we talk about movement and or
Yeah.
exercise?
Yeah.
Because I like the word movement. I'm the kind of person who you will not see me at the gym lifting weights. You will not see me running around a track or on a machine because like where am I going? Where's the
Yeah,
destination?
well, I can agree with that in a lot of ways. I mean,
So
I did recently start working with a trainer personally at the gym,
nice.
but she got the very clear message that this isn't, again, this isn't my jam, right? So while I'm utilizing learning some things and trying to strengthen my muscles,
Yes.
because I know the value of that, and I
Especially at
don't,
our age.
yeah, and I don't know much about it. My clear explanation to her was, look, I have to continue to enjoy this in order
Yep.
for me to keep doing it. So I really need you to understand that this isn't really where I would like to be. And but I'm willing to do some work. And so far it's been good. She's been able to really meet my expectations and there's no pressure and I'm learning some things and I'm really happy about that. But movement for sure is definitely more of how we operate in my house and my family. We hike, we bike, we like to be outside, we're active, especially when it's nice out, and we would be if we got some snow, but recently in the last few years the Northeast just wants to be freezing rain, so that makes it harder during those months. But I mean, ultimately I think being in nature just makes the most sense. And I think that there's also a mentality for a lot of people where they feel like if they're not doing the gym thing or they're not on the treadmill or they're not on a track or machines or whatever, that they're not fulfilling this need to exercise, and then it creates a lot of shame for people. But the
Yes.
truth is that as human beings, we don't really belong inside buildings with fluorescent lighting, spending 2 hours exhausting ourselves on treadmills and lifting way too many heavy weights that's beyond our body's limit. That's not normal. Our DNA is definitely more aligned for us to be outside and be active in the world. And so I definitely think as a health hack is maybe let go of that ideology, especially if it's not suitable to you. Like some
Right.
people really enjoy that. And I would never suggest that they not do that because I think there's obvious health benefits there too. But I think that there's a lot of people who struggle because they don't want to do it that way to see what the other options are and to know that those other options are very valuable to your health, your body. Walking, just walking. I mean, I walk with my husband. We walk where we live, and we have a very big hill that it's part of our daily walk up the hill because it's a little more strenuous, more challenging. And I know that that's something that he uses as his non-negotiable is he has to go for his walk every day. And we're outside in the sunrise, we're outside in the air. You're getting that blood flow, you're getting that movement in the body. And that is essential because if you're not doing a little bit of that somewhere, you're really doing your health a major disservice. So, again, when I said in the beginning, like, what can you take out of your day? Think about some of the things that we're talking about already, and movement is definitely one of them because I think people often make excuses for moving. And we have to say, okay, what am I doing that is impeding me from actually just taking a walk? Now, it doesn't mean to walk for an hour if you can go out for 20 minutes. When people say, well, I don't have time to do that. And I'm like, okay, so what's your morning look like? Because if you spend an hour watching TV in the morning because you're staring at the news and you're doing this, you do have time
You do
for a
have the time.
walk.
Yeah.
And you should consider reducing something that is giving you a net negative health benefit and replacing it with something. Does it mean not watch any of your news? Well, no, I'm not suggesting that. While I personally don't watch that kind of stuff in the mornings, I don't think it's a healthy way to start my day. If that's something someone wants to do, that's fine, but find a way to integrate the items that are definitely going to give you that health benefit. And sitting and watching your television for an hour to watch all that kind of news is not giving you a health benefit. So, you want to find what's in your life that you might need to move out and find a way to put it in. Walks, biking, even if you can just sit outside in sunlight. I realize that seems a little silly, but that is at least connectivity to nature. And I think the more you do that, the more you want to walk and the more you want to kind of be moving in nature. So yeah, movement's important too.
Yeah. For me, I really do enjoy walking outside. I love walking in my neighborhood. I love looking at the flowers along the way and trying to identify them. That's something I enjoy doing, and I will listen to podcasts while I'm walking.
Mm-hmm.
That way, that's some kind of entertainment. If I don't want to just walk, sometimes I like to walk, and that's kind of just a meditative thing for me, where I'm just like, at one with nature and my thoughts. And that's kind of a mindset thing for me in addition to movement. But if it's not weather that I want to be out walking, I really love dance. I am passionate about dance. I've always been passionate about dance and just performing arts in general, but my girls are both pre-professional ballet dancers. I took adult ballet until I hurt my hip, and then I switched to Zumba after that. And even though that is in a studio, it's social. So I get to see people who enjoy the same thing, the same kind of music. It gets silly. So I think that brings an element of fun to it. And I also have done things like belly dancing, which is really great for women's anatomy and physiology, if you will, as well. And these are just things that I've just tried different things and been really open. Like, I know I like to dance. That is one of my favorite ways to move my body. And that's something that I know I will do regularly. So I'm very open to trying different things. Like, maybe I'll try flamenco. Maybe I'll try, this type of dancing or this type of dancing. Years ago, you would have, again, my 10 years ago self would have never been like, let's go do some hip hop. But now I will go, and I will drop it low if it's good music, fun crowd.
It's back to what appeals to you. Don't try to cook food you don't like because someone told you it was healthy, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to do exercises that you hate, because if that's the case, you're not going to do it. So find something that speaks to you. There's so many more options out there nowadays. There's hiking clubs, which also can get you social.
Yes.
There's lots of yoga classes. If you've never tried yoga, just try a yoga class. That can also be something that will give you the movement that you're looking for. But there's so many different things. So find something you like, because look, I'm not going to be, I like to dance at a wedding, but I'm not going to go to a dance class that just doesn't appeal to me. Right. So, but it does to you, just like, 100 other people in the room are going to have a different viewpoint. I have a girlfriend that loves to mountain bike. And so she's mountain biking all kinds of places. And so that's her thing. Some people like to run. And I agree with you. Like, unless I'm running for my life, I'm not interested in that. Like that. But, and this is because we all have different personalities, right?
Yeah.
We have our own resonance to what is in our environment, what we like, and who we are as people. I also do yoga. I used to teach yoga, and I am a more of a slow and low kind of exercise person. I used to play sports, and I really like sports, but I don't like to play sports hard or competitively. I just enjoy them. And so going out and playing basketball with my kids feels nice, or throwing the ball with my son feels good. But so those are things that I say, like, what do you like? And just do that, and don't be don't be distracted by everybody's opinions about how you should
What
work
you
out
should
and what
do.
you should do. Right. The shoulds that just do something though. Right.
Yeah.
And
And do
think
it
of,
consistently. Like, decide what you like to do and what you will do consistently. I always tell our students, it is always more effective to do shorter bouts of movement more consistently than to like save it
sure.
all up for like one big 2 hour
Yeah.
workout and
No, no,
then
no, no.
do so much that you can't move for the next week.
And
That
that's not really energetically aligned with
no.
human nature anyway. We would reserve and preserve our energy and then it would be utilized when we needed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's something to be mindful of as well, is that you're not here to burn out. You're here to be fueled and be energized by the movement. But movement is very, very important for the health of your body. And the saying you lose it if you don't use it is very true when it comes to muscles. So, and
Especially as
muscles
you get older
and muscles release a lot of great things into the body that help keep the body young. So,
and happy.
yeah. And so, it's when you're working in skin health and nutrition and wellness, and people want to quote unquote anti-age,
Mm-hmm.
then movement has to be part of that. So definitely encouraging some movement, but whatever it is, it just like it. If you don't like it, you'll never do
Then
it.
you're
So
not going to
don't
do it.
choose that. Don't choose that.
Exactly. And I just want to speak a little bit to the importance of strength training because I'll be honest, it's not something that I valued at all until I got to be in my 40s and I started learning that for women in their 40s and 50s, strength training is really extremely important for hormone health as well as for weight management and to help us through that change of life. And for me, I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, I don't like lifting weights. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, yoga is fantastic for that because there are so many poses where you're using your own body weight.
Mm-hmm.
And that does build muscle. And Pilates, they're in bar classes. Those are things that use very either light weights or resistance bands or your own weight. And then if you do want to try traditional weights, a lot of studio fitness facilities and gyms have group weight training classes. There's this one at Lifetime that I love called Barbell Fitness, that it's barbells and there's a different body part for each song. It's really, fun music, fun group of people, and everybody's kind of there for the same reason. And that like if it's feeling really difficult, well, the song's almost over. I just have to keep going as long as this song is over, and then we do something else. And that is something that also kind of helped me incorporate more weight training into my lifestyle because I I'm just not going to go on those machines. I'm just not going to do that. So it has to be something that is part of something else or it has a social aspect for me to enjoy it enough to want to do it regularly.
Yeah. Well, I think as if everyone could focus on that, they'd find something and hopefully can incorporate it because yeah, and I think that people underestimate the fact that muscle tissue is so essential, because once you start to peak through that middle age time, you're just facing muscle deterioration,
Yeah.
and you need strength. And I'm watching my grandmother who's in her late 80s. She's dealing with some sarcopenia and she's losing her muscles are just kind of falling off, and she doesn't have energy to do anything. And when I was trying to get her to maybe do some like little bit of weights, to her it was so foreign, right? But when we think ancestrally, women were doing, and men, we all had our parts and our parts to play in our tribes. But for women, we were still carrying around babies and water jugs. And so that never stopped. Those elderly people in those tribes were never really that weak
Right.
because they still had, they didn't just sit there all day. Like we have that today. Women and men, as they age, end up just sitting there watching television, and then they get stuck there because
Yep.
they've lost their ability to move their bodies. So, for sure, you need to incorporate something. Start with 2 days a week if you can, even if it's just the walk. Go for 2 walks a week, you know what I mean? And then hopefully you can incorporate it into having something every day that you're doing some movement. Another one that I like is I have a trampoline, so I do some
Fun.
rebounding at home, and rebounding is really easy and everybody can do it. It's great for your lymphatic system, but it just moves the body, moves the body. And so there's all kinds of things that you can find to do. Find what you like and then try
Yeah,
to.
I love it. It really does come down to that. So I wanted to wrap up this conversation just with a couple of tips for just mindset. Like how do we make sure that we have the right mindset to see clients, to be present for our families, to practice our own self-care, to be there for our partners? And what are some ways that we get ourselves out of like a rut or a negative mindset space? So for me, I'm gonna be honest again. When I was dealing with the Lyme disease, I really lost touch with my mindfulness practices. And I used to be really into like metaphysical affirmations and doing that daily. And it benefited me so much. But I just got to this point where I was so exhausted. I just couldn't even do anything. And I started feeling very disconnected. So for me, again, I'm always gonna, like you, talk about the importance of nature, just going outside, putting your feet on the ground, putting your hands on the ground. If you are in a city where you really might not want to be outside barefoot, maybe you have some stones in your home and plants in your home to bring the earth into your space a little bit. Like I have rocks pretty much everywhere around me at any given time in every room of my house, so that if I'm feeling like I'm kind of flying off into, you know, freak out mode or something, I can just kind of literally grab the rocks and ground myself and just use those rocks as a cue to just like take a pause, take a breath, and do like a little positive reframe with whatever I have going on in my mind that might be cycling as negative. Just break that cycle and reframe it to positive. And if I can't reframe it to positive, a really good hack that I have for that is to just do a couple of gratitude statements, just wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing, whether I'm driving in the car or, maybe I've just had an unpleasant conversation with someone, whatever I'm doing, whatever the situation, just stopping and thinking of 3 things right then and there that I'm grateful for is usually enough to just snap me out of that and pull me back into my body so that I can then refocus and reset. So I'm very happy to say that I've gotten back into my daily affirmations. I used to do them at night, like before I was going to bed, but then I found that I would just fall asleep and then I would feel guilty that I fell asleep during my affirmations. So I actually started doing them in my nighttime shower because that's something that I'm doing. It's undisturbed alone time. It's quiet, it's peaceful. So I started doing my affirmations in the shower, and that way I feel like I get them in. It helps me end the day in a great way. And I think that it truly has helped me reconnect with myself, with, spirit, if you will. And I feel like it really caused a huge, just overall shift in my mindset on a day-to-day basis. So just for me, those simple affirmations and gratitude statements have been my best hacks.
Yeah.
What about
So,
you?
I mean, mindset is the most underrated piece of daily life that there is. At the end of the day, when I was saying, what can you remove from your life that isn't serving you? This is a really important task, because I think that we can implement different things, little hacks, right? But if we continue to shovel into our life a lot of things that are causing our negativity or our exposure to these energetic vampires, then what we're doing is we're sort of, trying to fill up a bucket with a hole in it. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say for most people, and I know it's not easy to do, but if you really want to dig deep, this is where you look around in your environment and decide what is no longer serving you or what is feeding you negativity. Because when you do it, when you look around, you will find that there are so many negative portals in your environment. And if you can close those or reduce those, that singularly was probably my biggest hack that I did 3 or 4 years ago, reducing my online presence in social media. That was number one, because things, we don't need to know everything that's going on. We just don't.
It's
We'll
true.
find out what we need to do. And I think energetically, people have access to what's happening all over the world, and we can't even see what's happening in our homes or with ourselves. So I think that for most people is probably a good place to start, is what can you reduce? And I
Mm-hmm.
think social media, while there's so many great things and benefits to it, I think if you reduce who you're exposed to, the information that you're looking at, really refine what the time that you have and what you're looking at, and don't feel bad about unfollowing or hiding information or people that are causing you to feel distressed, um, because reducing that will make it a lot easier for you to manage your own mindset.
It's
Obviously,
true.
affirmations are great. Like, I think, as coming from a yoga background, we do that through mantra. And you do it by controlling the mind. You can't control the mind if you allow your mind to be exposed to constant streams of negativity. The news is like this too. And I have to say, I think that the people that have the most struggle are the ones that are really spending a lot of time in front of these newscasters and
You have it
information.
on repeat, and it's
Mhm.
literally programming your brain with negativity. It's like reverse affirmation.
It is.
It
So
really is.
so yes, incorporate some affirmations, incorporate great techniques to help you stay centered and calm. Have, stones in your environment that give that frequency from the earth into your environment. But if you're bringing in frequency from all of these entities, and most of it I think is from the media, then you're gonna struggle. So I think you should really take a look around. We do very little TV in my home during the week, especially. We homeschool. So a couple of years ago, we said, hey, let's not do any television during the summer because we have this beautiful outdoors. What do we need television for? Like, if we have empty space, how can we fill it? But if you don't have empty space, you don't fill it with something else, right? So we emptied the space. We stopped the television that whole summer. We canceled all of our subscriptions. The TVs were all unplugged, which was great because at first it was very weird. I remember like wanting to just kind of like veg out and watch something dumb, some dumb show. And I remember sitting there and feeling, oh God, we already agreed upon this. And now I feel like I'm going to renege. But once I got through that, and my kids did too, as like a go-to for like kind of like just chilling and spacing out, it was replaced by other things. It was replaced by throwing the ball with my son. It was replaced by board games. It was replaced by things that are truly nourishing, with my children, with my husband. We got back out in the garden more. And so while we kept saying, oh, we don't have time for this garden and it's all full of weeds, maybe we were watching too much TV, I
Yeah.
don't know. But, so removing some of these things that are filling up a lot of space will give you ability to put something in that really will be more nourishing to your mindset. And we brought the television back in the winter because obviously we're in the Northeast. It gets very difficult at that time of year, only for the weekends. And to be honest
Mhm.
with you, we still watch very little on the weekends, and it's much more strategic, right? Like, my sons are really into Star Wars. So like the weekends are like, okay, we're going to watch The Mandalorian, or we're going to watch the Obi-Wan Kenobi show or something. So it's there's a more conscious effort on
And they
what we're
look
doing.
forward to it.
Yeah. And honestly, they're so busy, they filled in so much of their life with other things that now we don't even talk about the television at all. And so while I know that that probably sounds like extreme or hard for some people, and I'm not suggesting that's the answer for you, it definitely was for us and our family and all of us. We sleep better. We're mentally more healthy. I just think that while there's so many things you can do to adjust your mindset, I think there's things that you have to extract as well to adjust your mindset. I'm a real big fan of deep breathing, or Ujjayi Pranayama, which is
Mhm.
yogic breathing. That has been my go-to because I've been trained in it. So my body will go right into that when I just need to do some centering. It might look different for everybody, maybe you need to take some time and you need to like lay down and close your eyes, or maybe you need to put a little bit of some grounding music on or something and just take 10-minute break. It's going to look different for everybody, obviously,
Yeah.
but I definitely think that most people need to remove things to get their mindset organized. But
Yeah.
listen, if you don't have your mindset correct, it won't matter how hard you work. It won't matter how exhausted you are making yourself by food prepping and all these things. If your mindset isn't right, it won't allow other things to happen correctly. You'll have too many blocks. So energetically, you have to make that important. Taking that walk every morning, that's part of mindset. If you can take the time to be clear and breathe and be in nature, that's organizing your mindset, right? So some of these things probably overlap a little bit, but you've got to implement some of them to some degree in whatever way it looks like for you, to stay healthy, mind
Yeah.
and body.
So I think based on just this overall conversation, I think a really good way to wrap this up, just for the three areas we've talked about today: food, movement, and mindset. In each of those areas, I'm going to give our listeners a little bit of a homework assignment right now. And I encourage you, again, report in the comments and let us know what you chose. But in the areas of food, movement, and mindset, pick one thing to reduce and then pick one thing to add that's positive,
Yeah,
and
it's
start
it's
with that.
like it's like a feng shui for your mind and a feng shui for your life is, you can't accumulate all the things, right? This is what the shoulds do, right? The shoulds
Right.
keep piling on all the things you should.
Like
But
clutter,
yeah, but
emotional clutter.
you want to say, okay, some of those should sound good to me, but
Mhm.
I might have these other things that are in my way. So let's do the Marie Kondo, the whole situation,
Yes.
um, and minimize and keep what's serving you, you know?
Yes. And get rid of what's not. And if you are like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that are not serving me, just pick one.
Yeah,
Just
just start
pick
with
one
one thing.
and then pick another one at another time. But start with one, add one thing, subtract one thing, and try that for a week. And then kind of check in with yourself, see how that feels, see what's different. What have you noticed has shifted? And make a note of that, and then see, okay, based on where I'm at now, what's another thing to subtract? And then another positive thing to add back in now that we've created that space. So, all right. Well, Tara, thank you for sharing your
Yeah.
perspective and your health hacks. And I hope that those of you who are listening are getting some really good ideas for what you can add into your life to make things healthier and easier, but also what can you look at with honesty that you can take away, because it's just not doing you any good. And it's okay. And it's not, you don't have to feel guilty that you've maybe been doing that thing for a while now. Just let it go. Give yourself that grace. And if you would like a little accountability, tell us about it in the comments. So, all right. Well, thank you, Tara, for being
Yeah.
with
Thanks for
us
having me.
today. And thank you to those of you who are listening and interacting with us. Be sure to visit our website, skinwellnesspro.com, And while you're listening to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, we would love it if you would leave us a rating and review. Same thing with our YouTube channel. And we'll be back again real soon with another episode. Bye.
Bye.